take it away.
Thank you for the intro. I also want to thank for inviting us to speak here. It's a real pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Thibault Mathieu. I'm the founder of Wilkins Avenue, which is a production company specializing in spatial computing. We're recognized Magic Leap world-class partner company, and we also develop for other platforms. We created Out There, which is the world's first immersive musical in AR, and the largest scale location-based entertainment Magic Leap experience to date. So first of all, here's a quick trailer of the experience.
What's it like to be a crow, a hummingbird, a sparrow, out there, out there?
Creating Out There and showing it to that many people really made me realize that we can tell powerful, amazing stories in AR and spatial computing that touch people on a whole new emotional level. And we got an amazing response. People were just blown away by the experience.
It's unlike animation and unlike being a part of an audience member in a play because it puts you in the middle of the action.
That we had to have a really good song that could drive the story forward with heart and soul.
There's magic and harmony, there's violin and cello.
You'll never hear the same mix twice if you move around the room in a random way.
It's really helped me put myself into her shoes and feel her as a character and explore different ways she might be feeling and just see what happens.
It was just amazing.
Je trouve ça joli, c'est poétique, c'est féerique, c'est vraiment très très beau. It's time to live my life out
Out There was first showcased at Comic-Con Paris in late 2019. The event was 40,000 visitors, which makes Wilkins Avenue the only company in the world to have created, produced, and operated a location-based AR experience on Magic Leap at such a scale worldwide to date. So we learned a great deal of very valuable insights, both technical and creative. First of all, we were incredibly happy with how people reacted to the experience, as most of them were literally moved by it. It was amazing to see users with huge smiles on their faces, and we've actually had a few people tearing up because it was very emotional for them. And I've realized that AR stories can actually touch users on a deeper emotional level than VR. And that's because spatial computing, with that, we're bringing real magic into your world, the one you're used to be in and to interact with. Now, Out There features the voice of the incredibly talented Vanessa Williams, and it tells the story of a little girl who's trapped in her room and who longs to explore the world outside, which is kind of echoing today's situation. So we're going to give you an overview of the creative and technical process behind Out There. And it all started with this very simple idea and basic idea that I had when the people at Comic-Con approached me, which was, I want to make a musical in AR. No one's ever done that in location-based entertainment before. And it'd be really fun to make, sort of a Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, but in spatial computing, where you could walk up to each character and hear them sing, but also to various objects that are emitting sound as part of the music. But I didn't want technology to get in the way of emotion. I really wanted it to feel timeless. So we got together with my team. We were very lucky at Wilkins Avenue to have some of the most talented game designers, developers, art directors, and character designers. And we started working on various animation concepts, and we decided to use a mix of real-time 3D animation, and here you can see some early renders and facial expression tests, mixed with traditional painted 2D animation, very reminiscent of the early stages of Disney animation, which is really what we were going for. We prototyped it in a virtual environment, obviously, before porting it to the physical set we created. And a big challenge in designing this was to carefully think about the position of the various elements in the scene, both digital and physical, so that they would complement each other perfectly, while keeping in mind the limited field of view of the headset and the real physical lighting. And our set designer did an amazing job on that. And what was the most important thing to me in creating this whole new type of location-based entertainment was that the experience be coherent as a whole, because there are so many creative components. And so the whole user experience and interactivity based on user movement needed to be aligned with 3D animation, which also needed to be in line with 2D animation, but also with set design, furnishing, the lighting, the music and sound, obviously, and even the marketing materials that we created. And all those needed to be in line with the story, which is at the core of the experience. So all that had to be coherent and make a whole experience that felt seamless. And technically, we experimented a lot with content persistence so that the 3D digital scene is always correctly positioned in the physical room. And we have very precise results now, even when the headset is turned off or loses its tracking. So we really became experts at creating persistent content in location-based AR. Now, for music composing and sound design, since it's such an important part of the experience, we partnered with the very talented team at Pollen Music Group. Now I'm going to let sound supervisor Scott Stafford take the stage. Scott?
Thanks, Thibault. So at Pollen, we were really excited when Thibault approached us to collaborate on his music-driven piece. From 2012 until then, we had tackled storytelling in mobile 360 and VR and had a lot of these shows that were very music and sound driven. But other than a lot of experimentation in AR, we hadn't had an opportunity to really tackle these new creative and technical challenges on a project that put music and sound in the forefront. Next slide. So if I had to sum up 100 creative challenges and opportunities in one slide, I guess I'd have to put it this way. Conferences, demos, festivals back in the early days, nobody cared about audio in VR. No one even wore headphones. But as more and more content came out, that changed. By 2016, VR without spatial audio was totally unthinkable. Everyone was talking about it, even directors and producers, and sound entered pre-production. Creators were talking about sound at the very earliest stages of development, which was very exciting. Next slide. And then by 2018, 2019, we were back to the beginning with VR. Nobody was wearing headphones. Audio, once again, was an afterthought, and people were saying it didn't really matter anyway because no one was going to wear headphones. But given that we still need to immerse, embody, and convince the audience that what they're seeing is actually there, the important role of audio is still there. It still exists just as much in AR as with VR. So we were thrilled to jump into out there where we could start with a song and think about song from the very beginning. Next slide. Thibault mentioned that he wanted to do something magical with some of the set pieces in Liv's room, which included a beautiful old gramophone and music box. Right away, I saw that as being an interesting opportunity for something interactive that explores something that could only be done in augmented reality. Our sound designer and mixer, Richard Warp, who handled all of the interactive elements of the music and sound, is here. So I'd like to ask Richard to take over and talk about how he actually made all of this happen. Richard?
Thanks, Scott, for the intro. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the creative sound decisions and technical challenges that we encountered in realizing this immersive musical piece. So The key to the experience is being able to move around and explore real space with real objects and real points of interest, but with magical realism kind of overlaid on the top, over the top. And obviously part of this comes from the visual world reconstruction through Magic Leap mapped onto the scene, but with Magic Leap 1 at least, you're dealing with quite a limited field of view. So you need to have an immersion driver rely on the visuals to engage the audience. So that's where directional spatial audio really comes into the fore, and that's where we sort of took it with this piece. So I'll just take you through a few of the elements of the mix. Next slide. So it's essentially a duet between mother and daughter, and with a sort of chorus of family members mixed in with via animated paintings on the walls in the room. And so in terms of the way that we treated the mother character, so Vanessa Williams, she has a big present voice anyway, and we wanted to sit that quite high in the mix so that it's very present and sort of there in front of you. At the same time, gently spatialize it, so because she's also a picture on the wall, not physically in the room. So there's sort of gentle spatialization that we applied there. We also didn't, we had a fairly dry reverb effect that we applied because we wanted to get across this idea of Liv's mother sort of entering the physical room in Liv's presence while the family sort of stays on the periphery. And then in terms of Liv's vocals and how we treated those in the mix, again, louder in the mix because this was the main core of the song. We applied less spatialization to Liv than we did to the family or to Liv's mother, so that the vocals felt more sort of internal, the way a song is when you listen to it. We really wanted to get that kind of internal emotional connection going through Liv and her mother. And again, a drier treatment so that it felt in the room, so that she really feels in the room with you. Then we have the animated paintings on the walls, and we had a different treatment for those. We really wanted to draw people's attention to those characters. The family members have incidental kind of elements of singing during the song, so it was important to get a sense of, that painting is singing right now, so I'm going to go over and explore it. So as such, the spatialization was quite elevated with the family members and the distance attenuation as well, so that the goal of that treatment was really to orient you towards the painting and to get you to approach it and be curious about it, and then at which point the painting's vocals would become louder in the mix and sort of more present there. Next slide. So as Scott mentioned, there was something very cool that we wanted to kind of add to this experience, and that was to add some AR elements into the room and have the audience interact with them in a sort of new way that fit the immersive musical idea. So we had a gramophone and music box, and each of these had a different, distinct musical treatment applied so that as you interacted with them, you changed the mix of the song. So for the gramophone, we had an old-time vinyl treatment to the song music, so crackling and sort of high-pass filtering going on. And for the ballerina music box, we had a music box version of the song that was playing in sync via Unity's timeline to the main song bed. So in order to get these to work in a natural kind of way, two conditions really needed to be met. First, you needed to be standing near the object, the virtual object in the room. And secondly, you needed to be looking directly at it so that it wasn't obtrusive if you were just standing next to it and started changing the sound. So you really needed to interact with these objects in order to get the full effect. So you would peer into the gramophone, and the music mix would change and become a gramophone mix. And the same with the ballerina, you would hear the sort of music box rendition of the song that creates this kind of magical effect. So yeah, next slide. And so you're going back and forth in this experience between a fully spatialized song and a hyper-real treatment as you interact with the specific objects in the space. And go to the next slide. And then early this year, as an extension of this idea, we adapted the concept in the form of a pre-show song, so a beautiful song called In There, that would play before the guest actually entered the room. And so the difference here is that we actually had a real gramophone with the disc spinning at the entrance, and then once the guest was fitted with the headphones and the headset and was waiting to go in, they could listen to this song in spatialized form. And it sounded like this old-timey recording of this pre-show song, but as they approached the horn of the real gramophone and peered into it, the audio in that case would crossfade into a full-res stereo headlocked mix of that song. So that was interesting because that was sort of an inverse of the behavior of the virtual gramophone inside the room. So there were a lot of technical challenges involved in making this all work seamlessly and making it feel that it had a good emotional connection. And it was just a sort of a first attempt at creating a magical musical experience in AR. And on the whole, it was very, very successful, but it barely scratched the surface of what we could do. And I think it was important to all of us, as Thibault mentioned earlier, that it not just be a cool demo, but that it really draw you into an emotionally connected story. So with that, I'd just like to thank the audience for listening, and we are happy to take some questions now.
Yeah, so working on out there has been a huge challenge, as Richard mentioned, both in terms of technicality, but also creatively to really make it happen. And this has also been an incredible experience, as we've learned so much on how to produce and operate a very large LBE experience with a very high user throughput. So thank you so much for watching, and to reach out for any questions.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for that awesome presentation. My name is Eamon. First, I have to say, geeking out to be talking with you. I'm a big fan of your work at Pollen Studio, Richard and Scott. Everything you guys have done, leading from Presto to The Crow to Sonora, excellent stuff. And now the world's first immersive musical in AR. So I'm just going to jump right into questions, and then we can get to it. So first question is for Thibault, the creator. How do you design for inspiring empathy in your experience?
Well, it's a pretty large question. How do you design for empathy? I would say, as I mentioned in the talk, that AR by itself is designed for empathy, because again, we're bringing magic, and we can say, it's real magic into your world, and that alone creates empathy right away. And then, it's all about I think the character design did a lot for that, and also obviously the music plays a big part. It's a very emotional and powerful music. So having this combination of magical elements brought to your reality, emotion because of the story and the animation, and emotion because of the music, really brings empathy to the experience.
That's so cool, man. All right, the next question is for the sound. What are the essential elements to developing storytelling in immersive mediums and spatial computing?
Let's see. Actually, Richard, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, I think one of the key, the most important aspects of creating an immersive environment through music is, to at least in my mind, is less is more in a lot of cases, where it's about the judicious choice that you make, the choices that you make, and that you realize that you don't have to throw everything at the wall with technology in order to really make the most of that technology. I think that there's a tendency with these new platforms to want to experiment with every different possibility in terms of spatialization, in terms of object-based sound, in terms of multi-tracked kind of renderings. And I think that that can actually detract from the overall experience. So I think that it's about choosing which of the elements of the technology are most impactful for the story that you're trying to tell, and just focus on those. So we could have in this experience, we could have had a dozen objects in the space, just to show that we could have this sort of very rich sound experience going on, and you can wander around and experience lots of different types of sound at the same time. But that would have detracted from the song, and it would have detracted from the story. So we just focused on these two core interactive elements, in this case, the music box and the gramophone. So that's an example where less is more, I think.
Yeah, and I just want to add also, so when we submitted this idea, of having objects that are emitting sound, and it's not just spatial sound. Again, it's kind of directional sound that's triggered by your proximity and the gaze, and it's a different version of the song, basically. But it's not just about the objects that are emitting sound; it's also the characters, and so you have a variety of characters, both 3D and 2D. So all that come together to create the song.
And you guys did an amazing job. You already answered the next question, which was, can you speak to different audio frameworks such as ambisonics and resonance audio, and whether they're part of your approach? I think you're basically saying that less is more when it comes to creating in spatial audio. You want to have the story and the song come first. Guys, I wish we could keep going with the questions. There's a whole bunch in live stream too. If you get a chance, please answer them on the chat. But we do have to move on to the next presentation. I wanted to take time to thank you guys for coming out, and don't be surprised if I hit you up about a project in the future. This is very cool stuff you do.
Be happy.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ayman.
Thanks, Thank you.
Cheers, guys.